Hi, this is Barry. Welcome to Simplicity Zen. If you're watching this on YouTube and want to help distribute the podcast, you can like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Of course, if you just want to get alerted when there's new episodes, you can do that as well. On all the podcast apps, there's subscribe features, and you can also go to our website, simplicityzen.com, and subscribe there and reach out to me there. Today, I'm happy to have Corey Hess as my guest again. He was graciously willing to be my first guest when I started this podcast. I'm sure I didn't do my public speakings have gone from horrible to bad. I'm a little weird to go back and listen to my early podcast episodes, but I appreciate Corey being a willing first victim on the podcast. So the reason I've had Corey back is we covered a lot of his Zen practice during that interview, but we kind of ran out of time and I didn't really get a chance to talk about his energy work, which is mostly what he's focused on these days. So just to set some context, Corey, will you talk a little bit about what you're doing these days? Not so much how you got there, but like what are your practices and what's your touch point with the public with your energy work, you know? Like I was kind of looking at a few different venues and you kind of describe it in different ways in different places. So I thought maybe instead of me trying to explain it, maybe you could do it a little bit.
Great. Well, thanks for having me back. A real pleasure.
Sure.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
What am I doing lately? Right now, I've been currently running this group of international practitioners. We do a lot of standing meditation.
Is this the Energy Collective?
This is the Energy Collective. That's the group. So there are several different ways of interacting with what I like to refer to as like internal process. And so we do standing meditation, which is real simple. There are different styles, but real simple standing without doing anything and just standing there. We do Jamjong, which has some postures that we hold for periods of time to help open up the system.
Is that like standing post type of thing? Standing
post, yep. And there are several of those.
What does Jamjong mean?
What's it mean? I'm not sure what it means. Maybe it means like post standing.
Okay.
And then I do this other thing called non-directed body movement. And but for me, it's really all the same stuff. So the sitting, the standing, the non-directed, the Jamjong, they're all different ways of interacting with the internal process. And for when I was in Japan, working with Shodo Harada Roshi, I saw that the Roshi didn't really care how you got there, how you interacted. He didn't really care what your venue was. He just wanted you to creatively find a way to connect. And so for me, I do these. That's what I've done, and that's what's really helped me.
So define for us internal process. Like what does that actually mean?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So how are we interacting with reality right now? Physically in this room, what's happening right now? And is that a problem, or is that something that's happening and we're meeting the room when we're connecting? Are we connecting from this deeper place? And for many people who get into practice, spiritual practice, they're fundamentally, they need to resolve how they're interacting with their lives in a deep way, physically, mentally, in their cells. There's a need to learn how to, or open up to, or awaken to interacting with life in a deeper way. That's a must. And we call that the great doubt often. And I found that it's a very creative process to learn to interact with reality. And that creativity is what I would kind of say is the internal process. And we use these different kind of venues to explore that.
Mhm. How would you relate that to non-duality, if at all possible?
Non-duality, yeah,
In
well,
the Buddhist sense, not like in the, the non-dual Hindu sense.
right, right. Well, I think that you know, I, I think it's the same. How are we interacting with what's happening?
Hmm.
And how are we really doing it? Not as an idea, but how am I in this room right now? And how am I perhaps creating duality? How am I perhaps creating breaking up what's really happening? And so I'm a practice guy. I love the practice. It's very physical, it's very real. So I'm not really interested in talking too much about concepts with people. A lot of people are really interested in Buddhist concepts, etc. And for me, I feel like the practices really change people and they deeply transform people. And so I kind of stay in that end of it, just working, doing the work.
Hmm. Um, so is so this internal process as it matures, what phrase would you use to mature as that develops and matures? Like, how would you describe that? Would you say um, someone's becoming more connected, or like what kind of adjective?
It could be good, connected,
Yeah.
open.
Open. So okay, so with being able to use that term. So as someone opens up, do you think so? You were a Rinzai practitioner, and you had a decisive Kensho opening. We talked about it in our interview, and I think a lot of your based on your writings and stuff, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of the way you look at it is you're touching that place, or you're kind of retouching that place that you discovered with your awakening, and you're manifesting that. Is that a true statement?
Well, um, I think that if you touch this place, I don't know that there's a returning to touching it. I think that you're kind of transformed in that, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what you are. And
Okay.
so the internal process is about um, letting that happen.
Okay.
It's letting that, yeah.
Okay. So based on that action, my question is, if someone has not had that perception shift, can they still do the internal work? Can there, like if we put it in the phrase of gradual versus sudden, so to speak? Because obviously, it's always gradual to some degree. Even if you have a perceptual shift, there's a gradual unfolding beyond that. But when you're working with people, are you looking for them to have a perceptual shift before they can start the work? Or do you think you can do the work without that perceptual shift?
Absolutely not. So I think you can do the work. And that's okay. Like there are several people I work with, several different types. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, and some people, they're, like me, when I first started, I was like a walking pressure cooker in my
Mhm.
life. I was sort of, there was reality and I was sort of at war with it, or there was a problem with how I was interacting with life.
Mhm.
And at times I would drop into deeper states of mind and flow states, et cetera, all that. But so for a person who's like that, they're walking around and they're trying to get deeper into their process, deeper into their zazen, their meditation, sort of. They haven't really gotten into it yet. They haven't deepened into it. I feel like this work is wonderful for that type of person who's like maybe there's an energetic kind of again pressure cooker feeling for them, or maybe they can't feel energy at all and they want to something in them is driving them to start to feel all of that.
Mhm.
uh, I think the word energy is a little bit tricky, so if we want to get into that, I think it's worth doing.
Okay. Will you expand on that, please?
Yeah, so there's this whole idea that like energy work, what does that really mean? And as you really go deeper, that's a kind of a low path. And I would say that's a little bit of a misunderstanding of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, again, how are we meeting reality right now? And as we open up to meeting reality, touching what's really happening, as we do that, as we deepen into that, we start to see that like everything is a part of this fabric of what I'm touching. And as I go more into that, I see as I open up to what's happening, I fill up, my whole system harmonizes, it fills up, it opens up. And so in that way, you can describe it as energy, but what I'm really referring to is meeting reality and opening up to it. Okay.
So it's not just a flow. There's a wisdom component.
Yes. As you meet what's happening, big things start to happen. You start to deepen in these really interesting ways. So as far as like, is this just a form of building chi? I would say absolutely not. That's not actually what I'm interested in at all.
Interesting. Okay. Do you think there's value in that type of practice?
I think there's value in opening up and being full of energy. I think it's really helpful, actually, because if we're really low energy, if we're not really open, like for instance, okay, like if you are, say your system is this hose which is kinked. It's this hose which is you can't. There's no energy that can come through you. Okay, and maybe over time with practice, that hose gets bigger. So it's not that there's more energy, it's just that you're more open to what's happening. Okay. So the idea that like, even the idea this person has more energy and this person doesn't have energy, it's just more, this person is more open. They're more opening to what's happening, to reality all the time. So they become a conduit for that rather than the person who's just closed down.
So someone like Harada Roshi, who you lived like a decade with, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 years. So, he's famous for having lots of chi, having power, right? I remember one person telling me like, this is well before I met you even, but like first time I actually heard about this guy actually was, he says like every time he stepped, it was like a thunder, like boom, boom, just, he just, there's something super substantial and solid about him. And I think that's often described as chi. So like someone like him, so you just think he's not kinked at all or very little, and so it's just open.
Yeah. That's what I would say.
And so here's where I struggle. Like so there's chi, and then you've described the openness. What is the relationship? Because like we chatted a little bit prior to this where, especially, like, so I used to go see the Grateful Dead a lot, back in the days. And I think a lot of people would be really surprised what actually happened at Grateful Dead concerts. It was more than just a concert. I mean, talk about chi. I mean, just the energy transfer was incredible. And, it's, one time I was at a Jerry Garcia band concert, and I was maybe a little lit up. And I was standing there listening to the music, and like every note Jerry would play would send these waves of rapture through my body that, would reverberate in times with the music, like if you play 3 notes, there'd be 3 reverberations through my body, and I kind of opened my, I was lost, probably all tranced out and stuff. And I opened my eyes and I saw a friend of mine, and, the last time we had talked, there's a little bit of, I think we bickered or something. And I saw her, and like that bickering just melted away. And then she came over and hugged me, and Jerry played those notes like do 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 do, and the waves of rapture went through my body, but I actually felt them come up through my chest and go into her, and she like pushed me back and said like, "What the hell was that?" Like it really freaked her out, and she was like totally sober and stuff, and so I always thought that was really interesting because it was kind of some objective proof that it wasn't just brain chemistry, blah, blah, blah in my head. There was actually something going on there. And anyway, so that was kind of a preamble to the point I'm going to make. So that energy, like I knew some people who were like essentially wizards in being able to like manipulate that energy, and, they were kind of warlocks almost, but they were kind of like evil people in some way, like dark people, And so and this is a really long-winded preamble, and I apologize, but like, so the point being is someone could be really chill, like tuned in and connected to chi energy, but still not have much wisdom at all. So, like, what is the relationship? Obviously, having chi can help manifest wisdom, but it's not necessarily a given. I mean, can you touch on that a little bit? And sorry for the long preamble. I just kind of wanted to set the stage for the question.
Oh, I hear what you're saying for sure. I think there does have to be, what's the intention here for what's it really about? And again, me coming from a Mahayana Buddhism place is that it's to save all beings, and that's just hammered through every cell. So, but I think that's true, and I think that, like, at a certain point, you've got to let go of all that, and so the energy, the pyrotechnics, all that, it can get really beautiful and seductive, and but I feel like as we go and we become more and more honest, and as my experience with this stuff is, the more you do it, the more honest it shows you, you need to be honest, the more you need to open up. And that shows me at a certain point, you see, the tricks or the magic, or that isn't that interesting. There's something deeper going on. So then you can kind of use that, like, if we wanted to talk about energy, like the ox herding pictures, like the bucking, the ox has calmed down. I can use the ox at a certain point. I can use that energy, but I'm not like seduced by it. It's not that I'm using it as show. The Roshi, for instance, he's so in tune that he can use it if he needs to, but it's not something he's seduced by. And I think you do have to let go of a lot of that magic to really deepen. And that's why having a good teacher is really important. And as you do go deeper, things change. You see, I have to let go. This is guiding me. I have to let go into it.
Hi, Corey. Sorry about that. My internet died.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So we can edit out that.
Okay.
Or that could just be meditation time during the interview.
Okay.
So what was the last thing you remember me saying?
The last thing you were asking me about that, and then I talked about what I felt about that in terms of energy.
Yeah.
What were you?
Yeah, I don't remember what I probably was asked. But anyway, so we can segue to. So I'd like to hear a little bit about, like, the development of your relationship to energy work. So if I remember, prior to going to Japan and working with, I remember what I was going to ask. Yeah, so so there's that famous video of Harada Roshi doing Dokusan with two people, and it's going to be filmed from a distance, and basically, it's like boo, and he's just growling like a demon, and or a demigod, I don't know, but like that really, you could really feel the energy there. I mean, it seemed like there was no thoughts being shared. It was just, here's my energy, here's his energy. Can you attune with it? I mean, am I describing how he works correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Not interested in any thought in there, for sure. I know those guys really well. Actually, the second one, he's passed away.
No.
But yeah, I know those guys well. Yeah, those are real typical. That's actually the first one is a good friend of mine, and those are some follow-up questions that he's doing.
So the first guy's doing checking questions.
Yeah, it's an under the table exchange of, and I think it's hard for people to understand that there is this the real aspect of Zazen with someone like Shoto Harada is this under the table, deeper level of communicating and deeper level of connecting. That's what it's about with him. And of course, as you go along and you advance in the koan, they become complicated, but it's still mostly about this deeper level of interacting energetically, etc. So yeah, he's seeing Doan's state of mind when he comes in the first one. He's seeing that, and he's feeling the energy. He's meeting his state of mind, and he's finding that, and he's, oh, that's where he's caught. I'm going to push that back on him, show him where he's caught. And if Doan is open, he can feel, oh, that he showed me where I wasn't connected, where I was blocked. And
was Doan the first or the second guy?
The first one. And Shunko, rest in peace. You know, been doing the move for 1,000 years. He's coming in, bringing that every day, and the Roshi's meeting what he's bringing, all of his intensity, and the Roshi's mirroring that and shining it back at him. And that's his way of working with Shunko, which is, I would say, he works with everyone slightly differently. It's an individualistic process that he does. He's meeting them and he's seeing what they need.
So those are both. So that sounds like, was that Mu and then Mu checking, or Mu checking questions and then Mu? Was that where they were? So let's say, you know, they're a couple years down the line in koan work. I mean, is there still that energetic dynamics, or is it a little bit more? I don't even know what to say as the contrast, but I mean, is that dynamic still at work there?
Yes, I would say absolutely. I would say, you know, say Doan's coming in 2 years down the road and he's doing koan. He comes in, and the exchange is that the Roshi sees his state of mind, and there may not be yelling in the same way. There may be yelling in the same way, but there may not be. But it's still this, because Doan has touched this real place, because he's coming from this energetic connected place, he doesn't have to maybe sound in the same way, but the Roshi can still feel that in his presence and feel, oh, he's, you know, maybe he's doing a koan with Joshu. And as Doan comes in, the Roshi can feel, oh, Joshu has entered the door. I can feel that. And that's what that energetic exchange is about, is that you can start to feel people's state of mind and you can start to interact with that. So Doan, if he does the koan well, he is Joshu as he walks in, and the Roshi can see that's Joshu. He's connected with Joshu's state of mind. And that's, I'm gonna drill him further into that, or I'm gonna pass him.
If I remember, like when you went in past Mu, you didn't even Mu at him. You just kind of sat there.
I did move, but it was very overwhelming. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'm confusing stories. Okay, so all right. So to get, I want to talk a little bit about your development of this practice. So if I remember the chronology, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your first kind of interaction with any kind of energy work was what do you call it, non-scripted movement, or what's the phrase?
Non-directed.
Yeah, non-directed movement. You discovered this when you're in Montana, is that right?
I was in Montana.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, and again, using the word energy, I like that, but not everyone does, and so I think that's okay. So for me, when I was in college, I had like I said, I was kind of this like walking, I was the most intense person in the room at all times. I was you know, I was sort of really cooking, needing to find an answer to what life was really about. And I needed, not in an idea way, I just physically needed to discover this. And I had an injury. I was a big athlete, but I had this injury, and my body was like locked up. It was like, because my way of interacting with life was locked up, my physical body was sort of locked up. And so I don't really see a division there. I feel like they often are just the same thing. And so for me, I went to this place. It was like a church or something, and there was a nice open living room with hardwood floors, and we went in, and the woman said, this is called non-directed body movement, just standing around. You just stand here. We're going to stand for an hour, and you just let your body open up it as it needs to. If it needs to move, let it move. If you end up on the floor, that's okay. Go ahead and just be on the floor. And if you lay there for a while and stop, just stand back up and try again. And so you're not controlling, you're not letting that editor come in and say, I should stand right. So if your body starts to move in some way, you just let it without directing it.
Mhm.
And
Is this something that she developed, or is this a longer tradition?
Well, that's a really good question. So this incarnation started like in the 60s in Boston by an osteopath and rolfer named Marvin Sully. But I would say none of this is new. It's all old stuff. It's all repackaged. Someone in China or in Africa was standing 5,000 years ago, and they discovered, when I really listen to what's happening, my body starts to open up. And when I do that for a while, really interesting things start to happen. And so what I did was I that first night I stood there and my body did all this crazy stuff. My neck did this really interesting stuff. It was really scary. It was I wasn't in danger, but it was scary just to feel my body and really not try to control it for an hour. And I came out of that and I just saw, oh my, if I really listen to what's going on, if I can really physically feel what's going on, there's all this stuff trying to happen all the time. And then, like, I'd say like a month later, I was really interested in spirituality, and I went to see there was this Tibetan teacher there in Missoula visiting. I went in and I heard this talk, and I was there and I was sitting, and we were all sitting there, and then like my neck started to unwind again. And I thought, oh, I'm reacting to this person's state of mind, their energy, their focus. My body's starting to react to this physically, and my body's starting to try to open up in the presence of this person. And I saw, oh, this is all trying to happen. It's all trying to happen if I give it the chance. It was a little weird. I didn't really want to look like the weird guy there, but so I saw this is deep. This is deep stuff here. And I really needed a way to interact with reality. And I had gotten some real hints from that. And then when I went to Japan, I did other practices, which we can talk about, but the non-directed I did for an hour every day, if possible, in the monastery, in my free time, which was very little. I would sneak in this every day.
And I think people have mentioned to me that there was some formal Qigong at the monastery there as well. Who was teaching that?
Yeah, the Roshi did at times, and then which was amazing. And he also knew Che Menching's short form in Tai Chi. And then there was also Doyu, who you had on here, had been teaching at one point there. But then my good friend, a senpai, Daiko, he was my teacher of the Jamjong, which is the post standing. And he taught that. We did that every day. Like in the monastery, if it's a normal day, not no session day, you would sit at 5. And so we would like meet at around 4 or something like that and stand, and then, kind of grab a rice ball.
Sorry, you froze up on my end. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay.
Last I heard, Daiko was teaching you standing post. I think that's the last thing I heard.
Yeah. And so we would stand there every day from about 4 o'clock. We would go, and you'd go to the Zendo at 5. So at 4 we would get together and we would all stand, and then we would grab a rice ball or something and run to the Zendo. And for me, the Jamjong was very difficult and very powerful. And maybe I can talk a little bit about how that changed my Zazen.
Sure.
So often in Zazen, you open up sometimes, like oh, I really opened up. My whole system filled with energy, and I connected with everything, the room. It was so beautiful. And then the next time you kind of go and you're just kind of locked up. There are these places you can't even, you're just banging against yourself. And and what I found was I needed a way to get better at feeling what was going on, and feeling my actual felt sense ability to feel where I was stuck and work with it. And also I needed this energetic momentum to go through my system to help when I was meeting this place of a blocked space, that this momentum would help open that area. And the Jamjong is this post standing. You stand there, and it's okay to do for a couple minutes, but after a little bit of time, you get really tired. You start to get
I've
tired.
actually had like soreness in my arms from doing it.
Sore. And what it does is it
I mean, like the
shows,
next day, we're like as if I was lifting weights. Like the next day, I'll feel like I was having like actually had lifted weights.
right. And that could be many things, but what it does is it basically it reorganizes how your body holds itself up. So like maybe you're holding your arms up like this and you're using your shoulder. Well, you can't really do that for very long. So your body has to connect, and the whole body has to start to harmonize. And then when you do that, the whole body starts to organize. Then I don't have to use my shoulder. I can hold this for a while. It's working. It starts to self-organize from the inside out at one level. And then
I think I'm brute forcing it still.
you're brute forcing it, and that's really common.
Yeah.
And you could be creative with it. You can kind of, I tweaked it a little bit, and things changed. And so the Roshi was a Tanden master, and the Jamjong is all about the lower Dantian or Tanden. And what happens is through the Jamjong, you start to align the body, you start to open up to these, you start to relax and let go of where you're held. And then the Tanden really starts to open up and fill. So this feeling of the Tanden.
Is this a physical sensation for you?
Yeah, physical, energetic. Hard to tell where the line is with that. Physical, energetic.
But you feel like nerve sensations to some degree.
Nerve, like in the belly, you mean?
Like, yeah, if I tickled your belly, you'd be feeling something, right?
Yeah.
If there's chi filling up your belly, you're feeling something, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But I would say that for people to be really careful with pinning the idea of the Tanden in a certain way. The Tanden will change all the time, continually. And it may be that you feel it as a little golden egg or something in there, or a flutter at first. But then later, as you go deeper, you may feel, my Tanden is the whole room. My Tanden is filling my hands out. The Tanden is, so a lot of people, they like to kind of pin it in this area. And I think that's really, I'm cautious that people don't do that, because it will continually change and inform the practice.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead, please.
It starts out physical, and as you go deeper in it, it becomes more and more deep, like your state of mind starts to change.
I see.
That's where I want to get.
Yeah. I'm curious where you think the Roshi got the Qigong, because I've talked to a couple of people who have, spent years in the Kyoto, training Rinzai monasteries, and what they've told me pretty consistently is that there was no energy work and certainly no Qigong class. A few people would on their own do things, yoga or Qigong or whatever, but it wasn't part of the curriculum, so to speak. So I'm wondering do you know, just historically, and I'm just asking merely out of curiosity, I guess, but where did the Roshi get this? Do you think there's been a stream since Hakuin that included these practices, and Roshi was a recipient of the stream, or do you think he went off on his own and learned like Qigong and energy and stuff?
Right. I think this is a really good question. And so I think again, the Roshi was creatively working with people. I think Mumon Roshi was not a Qigong person. Okay.
Okay.
Like the biggest Tanden person, probably, just this incredible, energetic, you know, saint, but
And for people listening, Mumon was the Roshi's, was
yes.
Harada Roshi's teacher. Okay, go on, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that the Roshi, he had found ways to work with the energy, and mostly for him, it was Samu. The Roshi is this Samu maniac, and I think he found ways to develop through that, and through obviously through the sitting. But I think his real way was Samu, and so later when he had these students come, I think he found creative ways to work with them, and also maybe to help himself, to develop himself. He had gotten hurt a few times, and I think that the Qigong and the Tai Chi had actually helped him when he had broken his spine.
Oh wow! How did that happen?
Yeah, he had fallen down his spine. So he's crazy, he had gone back and was doing Zazen that night. He's just like that. But so then I think that was part of why he was doing that, was to help himself. And I think he saw that with his own kufu, his own creativity, he saw that this could really benefit some of the Westerners who had a particular energetic flavor. Either they didn't have energy, they couldn't really feel that, they couldn't feel the tanden, or they were like me, they were a person who had a lot of this energy going on, but needed to learn how to let it through them. And that's kind of my style. And so I think he found that, these are really helpful to, as a creative way to help get people deeper into feeling what's really going on. And again, that's where I feel like I took that stuff, and that's what I'm teaching now. That's what I took, and you can be creative with how you work with this stuff, and that's where I took it.
Did he ever talk about chanting being a vehicle for energy development, or because I've visited a lot of Zen places, temples or centers over the years, over the decades, and the Rinzai places seem to have the most intense energy with their chanting. It's like, it's kind of even if it's just like a few people, there's like an energy there that I've not felt at other Zen centers. Like, so would he ever explicitly talk about chanting as an energy cultivation discipline, or did he even talk about chanting at all, or is it just something you guys just did? Or what, in general, what's your opinion about chanting and energy, and what was his take on it?
I would say that Shoto Harada never misses Choka. Zero. Every day he does Choka, no matter what.
Choka is morning chanting in a Rinzai monastery.
And I think it's just the way he does Choka, the way he chants is so incredibly it just reveals how powerful it is. And so his vigor that he does in it is so obvious that it's a huge Choka. The chanting is an energetic exploration and cultivation project for sure, every day. And for my own personal aspect of working with it, when I was in my training and I became the Densu, the person who leads the group of people who lead the chanting and Choka, that was when my practice really changed. So I couldn't really breathe that well before that, and I couldn't really let the energy through me very well before I learned to lead the chants. And how that worked with the Roshi, again, you're learning, you're kind of in training with the Roshi all the time. You're learning to meet him and work with him. And for me, with the Densu, with the Roshi, the Inosu, the person who leads the chants, they're chanting, and the Roshi is chanting along with you. Okay? So you're chanting and he's chanting with you while you do the everyone chants, and then the Inosu chants individually with the Roshi often. And so I'm leading, but
like
I'm
an
also
echo or something.
like an echo. So I'm leading, but he's also leading. So I had to meet him while he was leading, but I'm supposed to be leading. Okay. And so you have to meet and energetically or felt sense way. You have to meet what's going on with him and let him guide you how to open up.
Yeah,
And
in Soto, sorry to interrupt. In Soto, we often say, chant with your ears. It sounds like a similar thing to what you're talking about.
very much so. And in this whole central channel that people get locked up in, a lot of people get locked up in the sternum. They get locked up somewhere, the chest, the mid back. And to chant well, you have to let that all open up. So it's a creative process of how do I, if I push it, does my ki all come up? Does my chi all rise up into my upper body? Or if I find the right pace or the right way of doing it, can I stay open? And that for me, needing to lead the chants, I had to find that. I had to find a way to stay open while I was chanting. And then it becomes a whole process of, you start to go deeper and deeper into the chanting as an energetic process.
Mm-hmm. So living life as essentially a lay person at this point, do you chant on your own or with your wife or with
I don't chant too much. Yeah. I don't chant too much. I'm happy to. I like it, but no, I mean, I'm not in many places where I can be loud. And I can be in my office here, but there are other people in my building, and
you should start waking your kids up that way.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to have a little quiet time in the morning before everyone wakes up. And it's loud enough at my house. I don't need to add more noise. You know what I mean? I have 3 daughters, so.
Yeah. So you got the I can never remember what it's called, the involuntary movement.
Standing around.
Yeah, the standing around, and then you got the Qigong from Tai Chi from Sogenji. Once you came back to the state, was there any additional training that you received regarding kind of body work or movement, anything in that genre?
Yeah, well, I did go and I learned structural integration, which is a form of Dr. Ida Rolf created something called structural integration, sometimes called Rolfing, and I did learn that, and that gave me permission to start to interact with people in a physical way, touching them. And I also learned craniosacral, and I learned something called source point therapy from a Rolfer who's also a Zen person at Rochester for 15 years. And I would say that when I came back from Japan, I needed something in me really needed to be able to share and communicate this deeper internal process, which I had discovered in my training. I felt that I needed to be able to share that with people, but I wasn't very skillful at that at first. I needed time to mature, to ripen, to be able to actualize things, and being with people in a room with them, they come in with health issues. Me gently touching them, or sometimes not as gentle touching them, I had to learn how to meet them, harmonize with them, and help this healing that I had discovered, help that come through to them. And so that was it was a really beautiful way to kind of put my training into being with other people. It helped me develop my internal sense and my way of being with people in a really healthy way. And then later, when the pandemic hit, people started I had written this blog for years, and people started to ask me to teach some of these classes on which they had read about what I was interested in my blog about the Jamdong and the non-directed and insights about health. And a lot of people with energetic issues, maybe they, like me, they're a pressure cooker. They're kind of battling life in some way, or they've had some deep awakening, but they have trouble walking around with it every day. So I started teaching these classes when the pandemic hit, and they blossomed from there.
Do you guys, so this is the Energy Collective you're talking about, right? Yeah. So do you guys do any classical Zazen? Like, how do you think Zazen fits into the picture here?
I love Zazen. I think seated Zazen is great. Standing Zazen, I think the Jamjong is a type of
Do you guys do a
Zazen.
seated Zazen as part of your group?
We do, and we do mini retreats every month, and the mini retreats involve some sitting, some movement, some joint mobilization, some qigong, some jamjong, some non-directed. So I think that honestly, the seated meditation, the standing meditation, I think they're the same thing. I do feel like there are advantages to sitting and there are advantages to standing. And partly what happens when you fold the body, when you sit, is that it helps open up energy in the legs and in the pelvis in a different way than when you're standing. When you're standing, it's different. So, but I think they're not real, right? You're just standing there or you're just sitting there. It's how do we interact with reality? And they're both ways to do that.
I mean, maybe it's just like Pavlovian conditioning or something, but I definitely can get in a deeper samadhi sitting than any other circumstances. I mean, it's like an order of magnitude for me. It's not subtle, but maybe that's just because I'm used to that, and so I associate it, and so there's a body memory there. I don't know, but for me personally, I've noticed it's just a different level for sitting than any other circumstance.
Well, that's interesting, and for me, what I found was, as I went deeper into the standing over time, was that, this really helped me to standing in the non-directed. It helped me to take it elsewhere and to move around with it. And that was really needed for me. Like, how do I interact with this all the time? How is it happening all the time, all day long? And so I think it's valuable for that too, for some people who maybe their sitting is not you, but some people their sitting is what's happening, and then elsewhere it's a totally different deal.
Yeah, I remember back in the mid-90s when I lived at a monastery for a little while. Yeah, we did one of the, I can't remember. I think it was a resident. I think it was actually the guy who ended up becoming Adyashanti. Like he would do, he would hang around. This is before his name change and stuff. He would lead a morning qigong practice. If I remember correctly, I think it was him. And I remember at the time thinking, at the time I kind of had some anxiety, but I remember thinking like the qigong settled the anxiety more than the sitting did. There was something about, and to this day, like, the few times that I do like qigong with a group of people, the various contexts, like it's probably the times where I feel most at peace, where there's like maybe the samadhi's not there, but there's something about from just a pure relaxation and settle down the nervous system point of view. Like qigong seems to be it for me. Like there's nothing comes close. But what do you think's going on there? Do you think that's an energy thing, or
it sounds like you're relaxing? I like that.
Well, it's not like I'm not relaxing during Zazen. I can get very relaxed, but there's just a different. I get, maybe let me put it this way. I think there's a healing element with the qigong that I don't necessarily notice with the Zazen. Maybe that's the way to articulate it.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that.
And, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that the opposite can be true too. That people can really get amped up in their qigong and in their jamjong for sure. And I actually feel like the jamjong can be a little bit quicker in getting people really energized than the seated. Not that it's better, but it's just a little different how it works. But yeah, I think getting things moving and getting the chi moving, all that is very, very beautiful and healthy. Maybe in the Zazen we can get a little bit again into that little pressure cooker kind of sense, and letting the qigong, letting it kind of flow through the system. I think they can feed each other really well, personally.
When you get so let's say someone comes into your group and they're kind of novice meditators, what kind of meditation instruction do you give them?
Like the seated meditation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly I just give them postural suggestions. And
There's no breath work or anything.
yeah, the breath work comes through the Jamjong.
Mm-hmm.
So the breath work, this is a big conversation. Often I don't give Sisokon explanations to the people in the mini retreats. We're doing so much with the Jamjong and the non-directed already that I don't give a lot of. Usually the sitting is sort of to see what's going on from the Jamjong when we sit down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm yeah, and I'm a little bit careful of giving Sisokon to people. Partly in that is, this is a big conversation, but with Sisokon, there's this idea, I'm going to go and I'm going to breathe out fully my breath. This is how we learned it in Japan. You breathe out as far as you can and a little bit more. And then the inhale just comes in, invades the body. So you're not actively inhaling, you're just exhaling. And for people who aren't really in their bodies very much, I'm careful to give that to them because it can create some issues. And so I'd rather go through the Jamjong where they get into their bodies, and then that getting into their bodies helps the breath start to fill up and do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my particular interest.
Yeah.
What happens with the Sisokon is it goes deeper even in Zazen. It starts to, that the breath has a momentum to it. It's a long process. So you end up not really doing it. You're just following the breath as it deepens. And the Jamjong gets you there also through just standing and through letting the energy through. So I feel like often through the Jamjong, the breath will, the Sisokon will start to happen. And I feel like that can be really, really a beautiful process.
Mm-hmm. When you were saying that, it made me think, I can't remember if it was a private correspondence or something I heard him say in one of his videos, but Jeff Shore, the Western Rinzai master in Japan, he says that he's worked with some people who do the extended out breath, and he felt like they were actually damaged by it, and they had to kind of unlearn it a little bit. He didn't really expand on what he meant by that, but it made me think about when you said when you mentioned some people struggle with it, it made me think about that.
Yeah. And it's tricky again, because I think that Sisokon is wonderful, and that it's a beautiful, deep process. And people confuse, like say the Roshi I lived with, they confuse his intensity for force. And so they think I'm going to breathe out with force. And even if my whole body's saying, no, don't do that, they're going to breathe out with force. And then you kind of damage yourself. Okay. Especially if you have some issues, some breathing issues like I did, you try to breathe out and you immediately hit a wall. So you could, at that point, you could say, well, I'm going to keep going. Or you can say, well, what's my body showing me? Is it showing me to open up? And what I found through my practice was if I really listened to my body, the Sisokon would end up happening. It would happen like sort of organically. And so I'm careful. I think Jeff's great, by the way. And I'm careful to prescribe this type of breathing to people, unless they, like maybe in the monastery or something like that. I like that. You're seeing the teacher every day. It's continuous. You're getting a sense of what he's really doing. So, but people taking some instruction and going off and forcing it, I think it can be really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great. So we've covered most of the bases or I guess all the bases I would have covered. Is there anything else you think would be cool to talk about on this topic that we didn't cover?
I don't know. I feel like we got kind of cut off there. Who knows what this is going to be?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll edit it if necessary. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah. I think I'm really interested in helping people to feel what's going on, and to often people I work with have had some kind of real breakthrough, and they're in the midst of some big process that they don't understand. They don't they can't go left, they can't go right. And I really love working with these people, and slowly they're able to let the process unfurl in these beautiful ways and trust it and have faith in the process. So yeah, that's what I love. And I also love the people who are just getting started, and they're just getting into their bodies, and they start to, as you said, the Roshi takes a step and the whole world comes with you. It starts to really happen. And I saw that if I really got into my body, that this whole thing was really trying to happen. And that changed my way of being. And it gave me great faith. And that led me to deep realizations from realizing I didn't have to fight life all the time.
Yeah. Great. So if someone's interested in engaging with the Energy Collective, is Facebook your primary portal for that?
Right now, we've got this Discord group, which is
okay.
fantastic. So we have this inner circle. So yeah, I do have this internal process group with Corey Hess on Facebook, and that's maybe a good way to contact me, or through my website,
Okay.
email me. But the Discord group is where there's a lot of beautiful conversation going on. And yeah, it's a great group. It's a really special, sincere group. We've got 3 in-person retreats this year: Ireland, Asheville, North Carolina, and then Whitby here. It's just really incredible. I feel so blessed. So yeah, the my website probably is the best.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Barry.
All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.